Welcome to CareCon, the most exciting caregiving convention in history. I feel like I can say that. Not a lot of competition, but I will take that. Thank you all very, very much for coming to this panel. We'll be talking about brain health in general terms. We'll be talking about caregivers, obviously, and how they can take care of themselves. And hopefully we'll be learning some ways that we can all take care of ourselves a little bit more. Apparently there's a chat, so if you have questions, put them in the chat. I cannot guarantee we'll get to them, and I right now could not even begin to fathom how I access that chat. So I guess, but feel free to type stuff if you want to do something. All right, now let me introduce the panel, and then we will get going. So one of our panelists is a two-time Grammy-nominated artist, DJ, producer. He and Dim Mak Records founder, one of the most in-demand entertainers in the world, according to Billboard magazine, and I agree. He also founded the Aoki Foundation, which supports organizations in the field of brain science research with a specific focus on regenerative medicine and brain preservation. Please give it up for Steve Aoki. I assume you're all clapping at home. Our next panelist is a neurologist, neuroscientist, and health advocate and disparities researcher. She is from Kentucky, and she currently works at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, where she is a neurologist, neuroscientist, and health advocate for health disparity and health disparities researcher, which is wildly interesting. Please welcome Dr. Eseosa Ighodaro. Our next panelist is a guy I've known for many years. He's a wonderful man. He is a world-renowned neurologist and researcher. He directed the newly launched FAU, Center for Brain Health within the Schmidt College of Medicine. I met him through his Alzheimer's prevention clinic through the Cornell Wheel Medicine in New York. Please welcome Dr. Richard Isaacson. And our next panelist, I've known since I was 18 years old. And if there's one person who uses their brain a lot, it is this person. She produces many TV shows. You may know her from Parks and Rec. She's on the series Duncanville, which is hilarious. She's now producing a documentary, Lucy and Desi, for Amazon, which sounds amazing. She does Making It and the spinoff Baking It, which are both fantastic TV shows, and I could not recommend them more. Please welcome Amy Poehler, everybody.
Yay. Hey, everyone. Happy to be here.
So I'll kick things off with Dr. Richard Isaacson. So how, and it's changed even since I've known you, but in general terms, I would say, like, how has thinking changed towards Alzheimer's, brain health in general, and what we know about like Alzheimer's and dementia prevention?
So when I first met you and your wife, I remember in her email signature, it said one number, but now over the years, 4 out of every 10 cases of dementia can be prevented based on modifiable risk factors.
Wow.
That's a big headline, guys. I think it's probably closer to 50 or 60%. We can talk about that later. There is no one magic pill. There's no magic cure, and there's some people that they can do every single thing right and absolutely still get Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive decline. But people today can grab the bull by the horns, take control of their lifestyle and other medical choices, and absolutely have a positive impact. So I think that's one thing. The other thing, things have changed. My gosh, there's not a one size fits all approach, and everyone needs to understand that they have individual risk factors. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood sugar. And even if it's not high, even if it's borderline, the concept of normal numbers versus optimal numbers. In class, we want to be optimal, right? We want to get an A. Like a lot of people are in the C and B range. That's going to fast forward cognitive decline. We need to grab the bull by the horns, know our own numbers. I'm tracking my blood sugar. I know my resting pulse. I know my blood pressure, my cholesterol, track these things. And the other thing that I guess has changed is I think, there's a voice now. We have a voice for prevention and brain health and regenerative brain health. And like, we're talking about these things. I used to get tomatoes thrown at me a decade ago, and people are, you can't do anything. Come on, you can't. There's nothing. This guy's trying to sell a magic potion. I'm not trying to sell anything. I don't, like, we get free education online. We do things for free. We're just trying to spread the message far and wide. People are aware now. People are talking about it. Thank you, Seth. Thanks, Steve, for your foundation. Thanks to everybody out there for spreading the word. So, yeah, we can do something. That's what I can say has changed.
And one of the things that you have taught me, and that has been most important, and it's funny because I think, like, culturally, especially in the entertainment industry, it is like you are considered weak for even talking about it. But sleep is a giant part of brain health, apparently. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how important sleep is? Because I think that's something that a lot of us here can.
Yeah. So everybody wants to know what they can do to protect their brain health, and you can watch Seth talk about it. He's taught about this on his classes and HFC Universe, and there's lots of different sites out there. But whether it's healthy diet, eating less food, exercise on a regular basis, modifying stress, seeing your doctor on a regular basis, and sleep. Sleep is this next frontier in brain health. And, as Seth knows, we track people. We put these little wrist devices on people. I'm tracking everything. I got the monitor. I can see dashboards on my phone of my patients. Sleep is critical. When you exercise, it loosens up the bad stuff that gets gunked up, called amyloid in the brain. And when you sleep, the garbage people come and they take out the trash. Sleep is critical. Whether it's 7.5, 8 hours of sleep, everyone's a little bit different. Making a plan for sleep, going to the bed the same time every day, waking up the same time, that's a good thing. If you're on your phone and you got these bright lights in your phone, and you're texting, and then you're like, okay, bedtime. Yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't shut off your brain. That doesn't get you in a calm position. It also shuts down the melatonin production. So less devices, 30 to 45 minutes. Don't charge your phone near your bed. Like, just don't do it. If you wake up in the middle of the night, don't check your text. Don't check, whatever. Making a plan for sleep. At 11 o'clock, I set an alarm, walk the dog, and go to bed.
That's late. Amy, I've heard you talk about sleep, and I've read things you've said about it. Like, how has your relationship with sleep evolved over the years?
Yeah, I'm a really reformed bad sleeper. I'm here to represent all the people that think they just are going to be bad sleepers for the rest of their lives. Like, I'm just here to tell you it's never too late, because I lived a real vampire lifestyle for most of my 20s and 30s. I'm sure a lot of people on this panel did, and I didn't make it a priority at all. And it truly was. I tell people all the time that when I got better sleep hygiene, my entire life changed, and it was just small habits, like you're talking about, Dr. Isaacson, that just changed my life. But I just think there's a lot of people that kind of say they're bad sleepers. They're told they were bad sleepers when they were kids. They were tough babies they were like bad sleepers as babies, and they just kind of put themselves in that category. And I definitely, it wasn't until my 40s that I really started to take it seriously. And once I did, it totally changed my hour, my day, my morning, my life, the way I interact with my kids, the way I work, the way I feel, all that stuff.
And so what do you currently do to go to sleep? My wife, Lori, does 400 things to go to sleep. Between like a weighted blanket, a sound machine, there's a lot. There's like a room full of sleep requirements, which I get. It's we got a lot on our minds.
Yeah, whatever it takes. But but for me, the biggest thing was just like making it a priority, caring about it, treating bedtime as important as I do other parts of the day. So it was like just prioritizing it, like, and I like planning it, like thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to back up my time. I used to work really, really late at night, and realizing, okay, kids help, right? Because kids give you this call time, and then it never goes away for the rest of your life.
That's the next panel.
But I think it was even just the mental thing of like, treating it as a priority like you would exercise or diet or just hanging out with your friends. Even just that, treating it as important as that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one thing that I've heard a lot is that like these like sleeping pills like Ambien are not good for you, which is just something that should be said. And I've heard a lot of doctors say like one should not conflate being unconscious with getting good sleep because they're two very different things. All right, Dr. Ighodaro, you're doing incredible work on Alzheimer's and dementia, and caregivers is something that we're talking a lot about right now. And one thing I saw in my own father-in-law, who was caring for my mother-in-law, was that his health declined in many ways as rapidly, if not more in some ways, than his wife's, who he was caring for. Are there what are some ways, in general, that like one who is caring for someone with this can take care of themselves, dealing with stress, offload their burden, things like that?
Thank you for that phenomenal question, because it's something that I see when I see patients that I diagnose newly with dementia. Their caregivers are there, and it's just a very emotional process. And I think what I try and do and what the field is trying to do is to take more stock in, we're checking on the patient, but we also need to start checking on caregivers. So I think what caregivers can do is empower themselves and really talk to the providers who are caring for their loved ones and say, well, what are the resources available to me? Because what I want to be able to instill in my patient and their family is that they're not in this journey alone. It's my job to help walk them through this journey, to help take care of them, and to help them walk through this, devastating dementia diagnosis in the best way possible, and to live out the quality of life the best way possible. And I can't do that unless they have a phenomenal caregiver. But I don't want the caregiver to become all encompassed in that and lose who they are. So I think a big thing that caregivers can do is really speak to the physician and ask for resources, empowerment. There's many support groups that are popping up now on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And I'm sure HFC and other different Alzheimer's associations have these care group support groups. And there's books coming out. Mayo Clinic is getting ready to put out a book in October specific to caregivers. So I think the biggest thing caregivers can do is really educate, empower, and hold on to each other and leverage on us, because that's what our job is to help the family unit take care of the patient.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Steve, rounding out like one of the strangest collections of people that has maybe ever been assembled to speak about brain health. I'm curious how you got interested in brain health and what some of the things that your amazing foundation is doing and what you were most fascinated by. I think just personally, like what got you into this,
Yeah, I mean, before I get into that, I just realized how much as much as I care about longevity and the idea to live I always say I want to live forever. I want to live as long as possible. Obviously, you want to live like the longest, healthiest, happiest life you can. And that directly relates to the people you love. Like my mom was 79. I just think about her. I'm like, Mom, like on a birthday card, I'm like, Mom, in like 31 years, you will be, I just want, the people you love, you want them to live forever, right? And happy. But as much as I care about it, I still am a complete, I love biohacking, but I still am like working on so many things that it's always an issue, like sleep. Oh my God. It's funny you guys talking about that. And I'm like, yes, I need to work on my sleep. I know how important that is. I forget I have a tattoo on my neck. I'm going to show it to you.
We'll give him 10 minutes to get his hair out of the way.
You guys see it?
What does it say?
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
There you go. See? Not good brain health advice.
Maybe I could tattoo that part. But I made a Netflix documentary, and it's like the titles will sleep when I'm dead, so it kind of stuck with me. But either way, obsessed with the brain, absolutely obsessed with the brain. And make a long story short, my father passed away in 2008, and after he died of cancer. And after he died, I I just wanted to understand what killed him, what is cancer? How do you stop that? And how do I save the people I love from this disease that's like kills so many people? And, I dove into books on nutrition and homeopathic medicine and, all this kind of stuff. And the sci-fi kid inside of me is always like, what's like next? What is the next breakthroughs that are happening now? And like, what can happen in our time frame that's exciting? And then, as I became more well-known as a musician and a music producer, I was like, wow, I can actually reach out to these authors and these people writing these incredible books on, longevity or health nutrition, and they actually would meet with me. I'm like, oh my God, like this guy
Someone may have broken their tooth at a concert of yours many years ago.
Yeah. So, and then realized that, like, wow, I really have a platform. And I think one of the most interesting things is I was meeting up with some of these scientists and researchers, and like the major discussion was, we have something that sounds like science fiction that, like, to me, I'm like, oh my God, like what you're developing right now is like, this is newsworthy. This should break the internet. And then they're like, well, no one really understands no one reads these science journals. The linguistics maybe is too like high level for people to digest or something. And I'm like, that's when at that time in the early 2010s, I'm like, I want to start a foundation to really, one, I mean, obviously raise money for it, but like two, like I think the most important thing is raise education, raise awareness, and be a bridge to people that like would be like, what? Like I love Iron Man. I love like things that are happening. It's happening right now.
Yeah, so, I mean, one thing I find that's interesting that Dr. Isaacson has talked a lot about is that like brain health in general is not a thing that is emphasized. I think the average person knows like, oh, if you want healthy lungs, you don't smoke. If you want, to not have a heart attack, like don't eat like, fat all day, every day. But I think the average person doesn't even conceptually understand that there are equivalents for the brain, and it's funny that I think, especially among people that are around our age, sleep is one of the biggest things. I do think this thing, like I'll sleep when I'm dead. I think again, Amy, like you are like the notion of not doing something because you have to go to sleep is like something that I think like, yeah, like I personally, like it's really hard to like instill that in your life. And
well, I'm a Gen Xer, right? So we grew up with a real sense of like productivity and blonde ambition and a real sense of like work. But so I would appeal to those people who feel like productivity is important to them and say that I think that the idea of sleep can be sold to people to remind them that it really increases productivity.
Yeah.
If that's what you care about,
optimal
it optimizes it in a way that is next level, and certainly has been personally for me. And I think so. I think that we live in a culture where we're really told to kind of push it. And if you want to push it, then you do need sleep is the way to help you get there.
Yeah, and that's something that I always stuck with me. Another doctor we know was like, think like in like the process of evolution, like where we're just kind of geared to survive. Think how counterintuitive it is that we like lay down and shut our bodies off with our eyes closed for 8 hours a night, and how important it must be to do that, considering how counterintuitive to what you would assume like your survival is, but we need to do it. Dr.
Treat yourself. Treat yourself as good as you treat your phone.
Yes, exactly. I can't.
Speaking of sleep, there's a really good book, and I read this in my training, called Why We Sleep, and it's done by a sleep researcher. Do you remember the title? Do you know the author, Dr. Isaacson?
Matt Walker, good dude.
Oh, it's a phenomenal book. So for people out there who just want to understand what is sleep, why do we sleep, he really talks about the evolution of sleep, where does sleep come from, sleep in different mammals, and then how it's important in our society today.
Dr. Isaacson, what are some of just the other foundational things people can, like, again, if someone walks in off the street and is like, I want my brain to be a little healthier than it was yesterday when I was doing nothing to take care of my brain. I think sleep is something we've talked about. What are some other things that the average person could just do to kind of jumpstart this journey?
Yeah, well, the thing that's worked best, for you, Seth, the brain transplant. Since we did that,
exactly, yes, and I have no remorse killing that man. He deserved it. He was a smart but evil man, and
so
my brain. Yeah.
So when I think about this, I think about two categories. Pharmacologic is like meaning some medicines, supplements, vitamins, things like that, and then non-pharmacologic. Non-pharmacologic includes the lifestyle, Mediterranean style diet, exercise on a regular basis, sleep and stress, and keeping the brain active and staying engaged, social interaction, learning new things as we get older. Playing music, for example, is one of the best things you can do. But each individual thing needs to be so personalized. So exercise, most doctors say, okay, go exercise. No prescription. Well, what I'm trying to do is give people an individualized prescription. You need strength training because you need to build muscle mass. If you don't have muscle mass, then your metabolism is slow and you'll never lose weight and you'll never be healthy. Then you talk about, okay, well, go exercise, be cardiovascular. Well, what do you mean by that? High intensity interval training is when you go fast and then slower and faster and slower. And that's important, but maybe it's important for certain people with certain genes. What about slower activity? Something called zone 2 steady state cardio training, meaning you have your pulse lower, like in the low hundreds, say, depending on the age. And that's going to make your mitochondria, the batteries of the cell, even stronger. You do that a couple days a week. I do it fasted so I can burn body fat, 45 to 60 minutes, slow cardio, fast walking, or very slow, pedaling on a stationary bike. So the key here is that we're trying to increase cognitive health, but including that, you need to include concepts of brain longevity, lifespan, health span, and brain span, and different parts of this very complicated puzzle will work on these individual things. There are so many things we can do. I wish I can go into more detail, but there's websites out there that I can give, and there's lots of instructional stuff I'm happy to share too.
From a diet standpoint, what are some, Dr. Ighodaro, maybe you can talk about this. I think especially caregivers who do not have a lot of time to take care of themselves and feed themselves. I'm sure, I've seen that, just eating easy to access, but probably not incredibly healthy food is one of the first things that people kind of go to. What are some of the dietary things people can do to help their brains?
I think the easiest thing to remember is whatever is good for your heart is good for your brain. There's the brain-heart connection. Blood vessels run through our heart. He's showing his shirt, and they run and they feed our brain. So
that is the nerdiest piece of apparel.
Well, Pharrell, that you have this is BBC.
Congratulations.
There's been a lot of literature on the Mediterranean diet, omega-3s, fatty acids. Just that can kind of get complicated, but keeping it very simple. What they taught us in grade school, in kindergarten: eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, stay away from salt, fats, not too much carbohydrates, eat a well-balanced diet. And it's hard, right? So it's like, how do you go about starting to change that mindset, something you've grown up with for decades? You just start little. So I'm not good at eating vegetables. I don't like vegetables. And I'm, as a doctor, I'm like, okay, I need to be better at eating. So I'm not going to completely just stop eating what I'm eating and then just start eating vegetables all day long, because that's no fun. But what I started doing is, little by little, every meal, at least one meal a day, I'm going to eat a side of carrots. And then once I'm used to doing that, then I can add on, maybe some spinach or some fruit. So you don't have to drastically change your diet, tomorrow, but like just start incorporating little habits. And there's a really good book on how to incorporate tiny habits into one's well-being called Tiny Habits. Can't remember who the author is, but for those who are trying to, incorporate better lifestyles, that would be a book I would recommend people, looking into.
Yeah. I had a really hard time, and I think things that help you make good on your habits, like you should not be afraid to try to access. I supposed to take like vitamins. I had an impossible time doing it. I got this machine that I have no affiliation with called a Hero that dispenses your vitamins every day for you. And it like you set a timer, you load in your vitamins, it holds hundreds of them, it spits them out. And like for the first time in my life, I'm taking vitamins consistently because I need a robot to do it for me. I think on the like, I'm sure Steve, you've seen some amazing technological things. What are the things you've seen that have given you the most hope, that have made you think, given you the brightest outlook, I guess, for people's brains and health in general in these conversations you've been having with people,
Well, I guess the one thing that's really interesting is heat therapy. There, like I during COVID, I did a deep dive. I had so much time. I tour like pre-COVID. I was doing 200 shows around the world a year for 15 years straight. I never dropped below 200. I cracked 300 like 3 years straight.
Oh my God!
So, like, talking about sleep, I could not get like. I'd have like a window of sleep, and I'll be like, "Sweet, I got 8 hours." I sleep for 3 hours. Okay, so anyways, during COVID, I just went in, and then I talked to Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who she became a friend of mine. I met her through Joe Rogan. I was on his podcast. We went real deep dive into the mindfulness stuff, and I did I did a YouTube show and I did 7 interviews with Wim Hof on ice therapy. Mm-hmm. I have 2 ice baths here. I was doing them every day. It is absolutely exhilarating, the feeling. Okay. There's a scientific, I don't know the science here, but there's something that happens in your brain when you sit in ice for like 4 to 5 minutes. I mean, we do 4 to 5 minutes every session.
You do that, Amy?
I do that. Yeah, I have a cold dip. I don't do 4 or 5 minutes. That's pretty badass. That's next level. I think I'm up to about 2, but yeah, that has changed. That's an incredible. I do it at night too because it really helps me sleep. But
I do it at night. Yeah, you think you do it like in the morning or something because it like does like give you a wake up, but like I do it like I do it before my studio sessions because I want to have like my creative juices flowing, right? So, and I have a really great sauna here. So like I do the heat therapy, and there's a lot of scientific evidence.
Yeah, you can just do it with your shower too. You can just turn your shower cold and just.
Yeah, exactly. You do like the cold showers if you don't have the opportunity to get ice because it's so hard to get that much.
Somebody on the chat wrote that sounds miserable.
I know that sounds miserable.
I love it. It literally is exciting.
And is there any? And what were you saying about saunas? Or something I hear a ton about in general in regards to longevity.
Okay, so I got to share this a bit of information that's really interesting. So this woman named Dr. Mason, she's doing this whole study on raising your core temperature to a certain level and tracking people that have severe depression and seeing if it works on balancing the chemicals in the brain. Once again, I'm not the scientific guy at all. We help fund her. The Aoki Foundation helped fund the research because unfortunately this kind of research is not attached to big pharma because there's no way to exit to big pharma because it's heat, So, I mean, I'm like, yes, we want to fund research like this to help people. And so she found by doing these studies that people that were able to raise their core temp in these saunas were able to not have any, for like long periods of time, not have any issues of depression that was severe. So that was just like really interesting stuff like that. That's natural. Yeah. That's coming out. It's like I said, like I love like being in a room, finding out about the breakthroughs that can happen now that people can actually access and be a part of. And it's just like there is some science fiction to science fact kind of movements that are happening. And I mean, that's why I'm so happy to be a part of this panel with you guys, because I think that's the whole point of what we're doing is to let people know that we have the tools and the access to be able to stop ourselves from, like you said, Richard, the first thing you said, I think was remarkable. It gave me chills down my arms that like we can actually 40-50% stop ourselves from cognitive decline, from Alzheimer's, and from dementia. That is like a big thing for me, major thing for me.
And that's something that honestly, like, you know, we started this journey, me and Lauren, with, when did I first meet you, Richard? Almost a decade ago, maybe, something like that.
I've lost brain
Yeah,
cells.
I've known
Steve's music. I don't remember.
But what's interesting, just like anecdotally, is just like at that time when you talked about Alzheimer's, the common convention was there was nothing that could be done. Like the company line in regards to Alzheimer's was like, there's nothing. There are maybe theories of things people kind of are thinking, but there's no definitive evidence that any of it will necessarily work. So maybe you kind of might as well do nothing. And now that's not the case. Like now, they can, Isaacson himself can prove that, you know, at least in 4 out of 10 people, you can do something, and perhaps in more than that, you can do something. And the fact that that's even happened in this amount of time, that like I've seen it materialize over the course of a few years, is truly amazing. So I guess I'll kind of maybe leave it with our doctors, like looking forward into the future, like what are things that you guys are hopeful for, that you maybe see on the horizon? I know as doctors you can't hypothesize too much on things that don't exist, but I think like seeing how far we've come over the last decade at least, how do you see things looking moving forward?
Eseosa, after you.
I think it's fantastic time to be a physician, to be a scientist in neurology and dementia, because we only begin to understand the brain and all the different etiologies that lead to dementia, one being Alzheimer's. And one thing that just gives me so much hope is organizations like this one that really, whose mission is it to take the information that we learn in the hospital, in the clinic, at the bench, and really disseminate it out to the public. Because if we keep this information in the hospital and in our scientific textbooks, it's not doing anyone any good. So I think we're having these cutting edge, exciting research, and we have organizations such as this one that's helping us disseminate this information to better the public, to better our patients, and to, just better everyone's quality of life. And so that's, I think, what's the most exciting. One thing I really, really, really want to stress is brain health doesn't have to be expensive. It shouldn't be, sleeping, eating healthy, going to your doctor, getting screened, all those things are not going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just keep that in mind. And if there's something that you think, should I buy this, or should I do this, should I do that, talk with your doctors. That's why we're here, because I've seen patients who spend a lot of money on non-evidence-based treatments, and it just really breaks my heart. So supplements that that we can have a whole conversation on that. So just really talk to us. We're here. We know the evidence. We're here to help you. And being healthy from a brain standpoint is free. So let's do it together. So thank you for letting me be here.
No problem. Dr. Isaacson.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, the future of brain health is now. It's today. It's amazing. I'm really excited about it. And I know I've talked a lot about personalization, and there was a comment saying, personalization is hard and confusing. And I agree with that. I put a link in the chat to a course that we just put out pretty recently that kind of deconstructs the personalization. So again, I can't personalize everything in this sort of environment, but there are some low hanging fruit here. When it comes to the future, genetics, like we can now do whole genome sequencing on people. This is crazy stuff. Like I can look at 20 million pieces of a person's genetic code, and it's crazy because it takes us we can do 2 patients in a month. So currently that's not ready for prime time, but we can do that. Digital therapeutics, we're working on software now that takes this process in a phone that communicates with you to guide you through this brain health process. So one day, hopefully soon, we're going to have this all out there. And I guess what I would just say, and I see Prevagen in the chat. Again, I'm pro anything with evidence, pro supplement, vitamin, whatever. If there's evidence, roll with it. Prevagen, not my thing, not my jam. It's just expensive, and there's just so many other things that are just better and safer. Or not, it's just better in terms of the balance. But long story short, just if you're worried about this and you can't get started, take a deep breath. You can do this. You can grab the bull by the horns, and hopefully you learn something today that empowers you.
And thank you so much. And Amy and Steve, what's funny actually is me and Richard actually did a study, and we have one published scientific study that proves that people learn better from celebrities than actual doctors.
That's one.
I want to read the study. I need to see
the same course, and we definitively proved that people absorb the information better when delivered from me than from him.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it's nice of you guys to do this, and just know that that this stuff is actually absorbed by people coming from us, which is shocking. I would think it was the exact opposite, but no, unfortunately, people.
That's why you bring in everyone. You got the scientists on here. You got.
Well, I rewatched all of ER during quarantine. So
Exactly. It's perfect. Well, thank you all so much. This has been our room. Please move to the main stage if you're so inclined. Thank you to all my panelists, Amy, Dr. Isaacson, Dr. Ighodaro, Steve. I could not appreciate it more. And thank you all for attending. I hope you learned something. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thank you, guys.